Well, at first look, this move, pawn to g4, doesn't seem to be something dangerous. Well, black has two ways to escape the bishop. So one way is to play bishop to e4, and another way is to play bishop to g6. However, there is a move knight takes e5 also, so it should be nothing dangerous for white here. But let's see what happens if black first plays now bishop to e4. Well, after bishop e4, white could choose to play pawn to f3 now, and it will happen the same, that black will need to retreat on g6, so it will be only one more move for white. The pawn will be on up to f3, so it will be only on the white's hand. And let's see if what will happen if black tries to take the knight first, with an idea if white now takes on f5 simply to retreat the knight, and he will experience no problems in this position. He will feel very good. So after knight takes e5, white is having the opportunity to continue with the move d takes e5. And now what happens is that black is unable to take on g4 with either knight and bishop, because if now black takes with the bishop, with a tempo, white could continue with bishop to b5 with a check of the king, and now black cannot continue with knight d7 since the bishop is under attack. And in the same time, king to e7 is impossible because white will simply take on f6 with a check, and then you see when black retakes, white can capture the bishop on g4, getting two pieces up. So this is not a good idea for black to continue like that. And what else? Well, I can say that if black takes on g4 with a bishop after bishop to b5, he will simply get a piece down. So the only other continuation could be considered after knight takes g4, and now here is the hidden idea of the g4 move. Well, if there is no move like the next that white is doing, the whole idea would be pointless. But the hidden idea is now that white is deflecting black's pieces from the critical a4 and e8 diagonal, and when black takes on g4 with a knight, there is queen to a4 move possible now. And you see now black cannot simply reply with the queen to d7, since there is bishop to b5, and black will lose his queen. And in the same time, if black continues with a move like king to e7, white could simply continue with the queen to b4, and now you see black is checked, and in the same time the b7 pawn is under a threat, so there is no way for black to defend them both. For instance, king e8 can be met by bishop to b5 with a check, and you see black will lose his queen again. And in case of king d7, white could continue with queen takes b7 check and simply crush black's position. For instance, now in case of queen c7, bishop to b5 is possible, and after king d8, queen takes a8, and the game will end now. So it shows us that the knight takes e5 move is really not a good opportunity for black to continue, since after d takes e5, black will have two pieces under a threat, the bishop and knight, and he will experience a lot of problems in this position. So instead of this, after the g4 move, it seems that the one and the best continuation for black here should be bishop to g6. So let's see what happens if black simply drops back the bishop. In the game, white continued with the move pawn to h4, creating the immediate threat of pushing that pawn further with h5 and making black to go with bishop e4, and then the bishop can be trapped by f3, pawn to f3. Let me show you how this can happen. If black plays bishop d6, h5, and in case of bishop e4, f3, and black is losing. So after h4, of course, knight takes e5 is also impossible move because of d takes e, followed by h5 with the same idea of f3, and black loses the bishop. So this is impossible. And what happens if black simply plays the pawn? Well, in the game black played the move pawn to h6. Well, it's quite simple. When black plays pawn to h6, white gets the opportunity to take on g6, and now black will be forced to retake with the f pawn, making a really bad weaknesses on the king side. And it's not only that, but the pawn on g6 will turn into a very bad weakness that white can actually exploit. And here is how it happened. White played the move bishop to d3, directly attacking the pawn on g6, and it forces black to play move like king to f7 in order to protect that pawn. But then white has the way to play queen to c2 now, making a battery on that b1 h7 diagonal, hitting the pawn on g6, and now black is really feeling terrible. Since now g5 is impossible because white can simply take there, and you see that black cannot retake because of the threat rook takes h8. The rook is hanging, so black has no way to push the pawn forward. So in the game, black chooses to continue with knight takes g4, and if not to decide all of the problems, at least to equalize the material. However, after knight takes g4, white simply continued with the bishop takes g5, and after king g8, here is one more really strong move, I can say, as a continuation of that great idea with g4. This is knight takes d5, and the point is that if black simply takes, as it happened in the game, white plays the move queen to f5, creating not one or two but whole 3 threats to the black's position. Now there are threats like queen to f7 with a mate, queen takes d5 again, or queen to e6 with mates, and also there is a threat on the knight on g4 with queen takes g4. So queen f5, and after this it seems that black should lose in this position. Anyway, black chooses to continue with bishop to b4, king e2 was played, and we see that black cannot drop his knight back because of the threat of king queen to e6 and queen f7 with a mate. So for this reason, black didn't drop that knight back, but he chose to give it back in order to make some active pieces in order to defend the king. So queen f6 was played, and white simply took back the knight with queen takes g4, and after knight f8 he just played the bishop to d3. So in this position white is having one more pawn and a very strong position, and you see black is with this bad king on g8, very bad placed pieces, the knight on f8 and the bishop on f4, and the very bad weaknesses on d5 and g7, together with these weakened light squares on the king's side. So white continues with bishop to d3, and there was only one idea that black could use now with knight to e6, and some idea to play rook f8 and probably to create some threats on the white's king. But one more really strong move just finished the all black's hopes. So it was the queen f5, and white is simply offering an exchange to the queens, and if the queens are going to be exchanged, then white will simply get a winning position, a winning endgame position, with a pair of bishops and a pawn up and a lot of weaknesses in the black's position. So black played 10 more moves and then resigned, but I can say that he may resign straight away. So this is one very interesting trap variation promoted by one of the greatest masters, Efim Bogoljubow, and this is how a chess player can track down a player who is playing the Semi-Slav defense and doesn't know the really important ideas in this system. So we don't have to learn these variations mechanically, but we have to concern exactly what are the main ideas and plans in these variations, because otherwise we can get in such kind of trap variation, or in such combination as black did in this game. So thank you very much, and see you next time.